tier lists. I like watching them and they seem fun to make. So, next to covering lore, I'm going to also do some tier lists and turn this into a series on this channel. Starting off with ranking Elden Ring bosses, and in the process becoming video 696 on YouTube covering this topic. Starting off, Battle Mage oh god, how do you pronounce that? Hugius. Okay, let's just call him Hugh for short. He's basically just an enemy type you encounter somewhere in the world, so nothing special. And same goes for the Beasts of Helm Azula. They are not really challenging, but they have a cool design. So just F tier. Bell-bearing. Ooh. I really enjoy how From Software definitely included a nice cycle for certain bosses to spawn. He's really cool, also in the way he fights with his swinging and flashing sword maneuvers. But then again, if you die to him, you have a difficult process for him to spawn again. And I'm not going out of my way to fight it? Nah, reward isn't really worth it, see. Borealis the Freezing Fog. Honestly, dragon fights in this game are really fun. And also that they incorporate here the frost mechanic for this particular dragon. But then again, fighting him is a real pain when you can't see him for the first half of the fight with the fog. And he's also nothing more special than the dragons themselves. But then again, the lore he drops about that the frost dragons were basically chased away by the fire giants is also kinda cool. Yeah, let's go with B tier. It seems fitting. The Cemetery Shade. Pretty much Bloodborne inspired boss. But again, the HP pool of this is just awful and nah. It's not a great fight, it doesn't really last long. Same goes with Cleanwood Knight, it's just another enemy type later on. Also nothing's fancy. Commander Nile. Definitely serves as quite a challenge, and especially to gain access to the Halic tree. The summons are just annoying essentially, but he doesn't attack me right away. So it's bearable. And lore-wise, D tier. He isn't as horrible as the others, but also I don't really like him that much. Blackblade Kindred. Ooh. They're essentially the gargoyles, but with a way cooler design and a way more punishing attacks. Do I enjoy them? They're also not a pain to encounter, especially the one next to Gorang at the Bestial Sanctum, so how do I feel about you? My little kindred. A tier. A tier. They're quite fun. And challenging. Okay, Black Knife Assassin. I just enjoy this fight really much. S tier. They're really cool. Bloodhound Knight Dowgul. But then again, the boss fight isn't really special. It's just another enemy type we encounter later or random somewhere in the world. Looks wise and fighting technique wise, he's also not really that great. Ooh, okay. But the next one is more interesting. Balls Carrion Knight. It's essentially another troll, but one that can use magic. And it's also neat to note that some of the Carrion Knights were also not just humans, but also trolls. With also some interesting elf lore to Renala. Yeah, C tier is definitely more fitting for a Carrion Knight. Commander O'Neill. It's essentially just Commander Nile, but instead of Frost and Lightning he uses what? But then again, what is more annoying for me in a fight? What or Frost and Lightning? No, Commander O'Neill D tier, but now C tier since he doesn't use what. And it's a quite more spectacle when you fight him with the lightning and frost mashing so well with another. Ooh, and it's Crucible. Crucible Knights, the A tier. A tier. I really love fighting them. They're a bit of a steep learning curve, but then again, when you fight them and you know their movesets in and out, they're just really so much fun to fight. Especially when they use their incantations aspects of the Crucible. And honestly speaking, I really wish we could also have the moveset when they pop out their wings and fly through the sky. It would really be really fun if we also could do this. Oh, I really hope we get them with the DLC. That kind of incantation. Okay, Crystallians. They are some of the more obscure enemy types in the game. Their lore is also quite fascinating since they imply that an outer god created them, of which we know literally nothing of. Fighting them is also interesting since you really have to use this dagger mechanic to really first of all crack them in order to inflict any type of damage with quite literally any weapon, instead of just relying on a blunt weapon. But then again, if you also count... no. The dual and triple fights are actually somewhat good enough balance to not be annoying. And I'm not really going out of my way to fight them, but then again, I don't really dislike them, so yeah, C tier seems fine. Decaying S... how do you pronounce that? X... Okay. His visuals are definitely cool and all. It's also cool that it's a dragon fight and you can use tone against them. But then again, it's not really that bad with the what. What about lore-wise? It's actually quite cool that dragons could survive Millennia Scarlet 1 in Aeonia. But am I really enjoying it really that much? Let's be real, I'm just avoiding it since I find it boring to fight D tier. Okay, Demi-Human Queen, Margot and Maggie. Margot and Maggie. Yeah, I basically avoid them, I don't find them interesting to fight. Same goes for the Demi-Human Chief, it's just another enemy type you encounter in the world. Divine Bridge Golem. I can only think of one instance where I fight him as a boss. In the cave where I can find the Blue Dancer Charm. Do I enjoy fighting him? He's on the larger side, so camera-wise he's a pain to deal with. But then again, you can fairly easily fell him and stagger him. Do I feel C or D tier? C or D tier? But music is also just generic. What about lore? Okay, we don't also learn anything about lore. But he's fun to fight on the other hand. C tier. He's fun to fight. Okay, Dragonkin Soldier of Noxdella. It's definitely more of a unique dragon fight. But wait, it's also the one who can fly and use Frost Lightning. If it were just the one in Sophia River, then I would say D tier, but yeah, some more movesets, so he's cool. Okay, Erdtree Avatar. Technically speaking, he becomes just another enemy type in the world. But then again, it's a Silent Demon, and I actually like the callback to him. But then again, the projectile moveset is just so, it's annoying to dodge. But then again, it's Silent Demon, and it's really a shit ton of fun to fight this guy. I look forward to fighting an Erdtree Avatar every time, so it's C tier. But not Erdtree Burial Watchdogs. Honestly speaking, they look cool and all. Also the way they move, as there's just essentially golems and puppets, but yeah, they don't pose any difficulty whatsoever. And especially if you've played Elden Ring so many times, you just get used to them being so easy. Eska, Priest of Blood. The drop from this boss is really nice, but he's... oh no. It's the one with the stray Rot Dogs. Oh. The drop is good, but the stray dogs, no. Just no. D tier. Falling Star Beast. Ooh. Okay, this is either going to be A or B tier. I really enjoyed the use of gravity for this boss, since gravity bosses are really, really rare. But again, the few they have really so good. It's also cool that they just essentially come from the cosmos, and they are really a steep learning curve to master all of their movesets. But that one move where they can basically lift you up into the air and smash you right back into the ground is really annoying. It's also really the challenging part, since you know what's coming and you really have to go out of the AoE area. No, A tier, they're really just so much fun to fight. I can't really say that about the Fell Twins, since they're just essentially Omen enemy types you encounter plenty of in the subterranean Shining Grounds. But the build-up and the unexpectedness of this boss fight is also really quite good. I also did a referencing that, hey, you just defeated Morgoth, but there's also another Omen twin you have to fight if you wish to get 2 great runes and learn more about Elden Ring's Omen lore. But they are not S tier material, no. Definitely not. Definitely not, but the build-up is... the build-up and the area is really cool. It's giving me some DS1 Abyss vibes. And it's also one of the better boss gang fights. And it's also not really that difficult to get to them. B tier for now, maybe I'll change it later. Okay, Dragonkin Soldier, the one is Sophia River. Let's be real, it's just a tile worse than Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella. It's not really that impressive. Oh, but what's impressive is the build-up for Dragonlord Placido 6. Am I the only one who's getting some really nameless king vibes when we have to enter his arena? I really like the presentation we get, especially that we travel back in time. Lore-wise, he's just a goldmine to speculate and research on, and its fight is just really legendary. You're basically fighting an Elden Lord, but one that's been so beat up and lost so much of its power that it's then again for this area and this stage of playthrough brokers, it's really fitting and it's really a shit ton of fun fighting him. But am I really going S tier for this one? Lore-wise, it's great. Spectacle-wise, it's fantastic. Difficulty, it's also difficult, but not too difficult that it's unfair. And build-wise, I can fight him with many different builds. No, it's an alright perfect boss. S tier. Okay, Elden Beast. Honestly speaking, Elden Beast is really the most beautifully aesthetic boss FromSoft has ever created as of now. And that alone I would give him S tier for that. The actual fight is also not as bad, since each and every time I fought him, it didn't go, oh, 10 seconds passed, he's moving away from me. Oh, 10 seconds passed off again, he's fleeing from me. Oh, 10 seconds have again passed, he's also fleeing from me again. I really didn't have such a boss fight round with him, and you just... Oh, am I really just going to rank him on aesthetics alone? Yes, I am. Really, it's especially the arena and the music when you fight him. It's just... Do you guys know the feeling when you get that you touch the divine and really transcend your body? It's that kind of feeling I got when I fought him for the very first time. It's really just that good of a boss. Fight-wise, it's also pretty good, but there are some kinks I also don't really like about him. Okay, but now Armor of the Briar. Honestly speaking, you get his sword, so the drop is really good. But again, then the moveset isn't really that much different from Bell-Bearing Hunter you've encountered many times already. You also get his armor that's quite nice, and you can basically roll into enemies and inflict blood loss on them. But again, is the arena-wise... It's definitely smaller, but not too small so that it gets annoying. But the way to the boss is... Now you can basically run through the castle, it's not really that difficult. But where am I ranking you? I don't feel B tier, that would be too much. Now, also C tier, you're essentially encountering LML for the final time. Or supposedly his final time. It's not really not that different from the Bell-Bearing Hunter. But what's different is Fierce Champion. You're basically just fighting some other NPCs, which isn't really that great. But what's great is how they incorporate online elements in for this particular fight, since if you're playing online, you can basically essentially fight duels of other players, which cranks up the difficulty quite a bit, which gets me to move it to A tier. But I'm mostly playing offline mode, so I'm feeling D tier. But then again, you have quite a big boss arena, and fighting right below Godwin is also kinda sick. So C tier. Fire Giant. Okay. How do I feel about this particular boss? It definitely looks cool. And especially the cutscene for the transition into a second boss phase is also quite good. And definitely one of the most unique ones in all of From Software bosses. But let's be real, the actual fight isn't really that great. You're either chipping away at his legs for the entire first phase, and then again at his arms, and you just basically have to avoid him, and you essentially have to use Torrent for this fight, since chasing after him is just a nightmare on foot. So you can use Torrent, but then again, if you summon, for example, Alexander, you cannot use Torrent, which makes this fight just more annoying than having to chase after the Elden Beast. Also, his health pool is just ridiculous, and yeah, the game really just encourages to use Bloodlust for this boss, so C tier seems fine. C tier seems fine. Okay. Yeah, Agil, honestly speaking, it's just a spectacle to see him for the very first time, and especially the way in which he descends into the lake is also quite cool, but yeah, there's not really pretty much anything else to him. C tier. Just a decent fight. Okay, wait. Full grown falling. Oh, right. That's the boss near the volcano, man. And the other one must be in the Altus Plateau. Oh, yeah. And Altus in the mines. Okay, hold on. Now I have to redo my ranking here for these two. This one definitely has the one for with the slamming AoE attack, which makes him A tier. Falling Star Beast Lexter, but pretty much everything else is the same. Oh, and he also can't fire the laser, right? Yeah, I think he also can't fire the laser, so just for the lack of these two moves, let's go B tier for this one. How many more? Shit! Okay, this will be a long video. Okay, Glintstone Dragon Smelrak. Okay, just a dragon with the motive of having glintstone sorceries as his breathing attack. Honestly speaking, I just go for the Academy Glintstone key and don't really bother fighting him, so D tier. Godfrey, basically the reskin of Godric. Do I really enjoy Godfrey that much? He's definitely dropping a nice talisman, which also drops some neat little lore, but then again, it's just it has to be of definitely one tier less than Godric, definitely, for not having a literal dragon head as an arm. But okay, just judging Godric's first phase. It's interesting, but not really that challenging, so C tier. Definitely C tier. Oh, Godfrey. Okay, Godfrey. Not gonna lie, it's really definitely one of the best fights in all of Elden Ring. Especially the first phase is perfect, just perfect. The OST is just magnificent. The movesets are also quite beautiful to dodge and fight against, and especially... Honestly speaking, the best part about this fight is A, you're fighting a legend in his prime. B, the music for this boss fight, especially the first half, is just perfectly divine. And the second phase is also very, very unexpected, which in my opinion is not as good as the first phase, but it's also really good. And my only gripe for the second phase is that they really could have done with one or two less grabbing attacks. But then again, perfect. Perfect boss and a perfect challenge. Godric is definitely also a good challenge for the very first demigod boss you fight for the very first time. But if you're experienced with Elden Ring after a couple of playthroughs, he's just really too easy. But then again, the spectacle you see for the very first cutscene, when he transitions into his second phase, it's really a spectacle and honestly pretty nuts, so B tier for Godric. Now let's go to another boss with some really excellent boss music, which Okay, tier list for Elden Ring music is already confirmed now. Godskin Apostle. It's definitely a really interesting fight. Also one of the most unique bosses in the entire game. And it's not as horrendous as fighting the Noble with his belly rolling attack. So how do we feel about this? Aesthetic wise, he's also, I don't know, wearing skin. Can it be considered cool or creepy or a really questionable fashion choice? Also, the use of black flame is also quite cool, so that the white of his robes with the black of the flames really mesh well, and I'm really a sucker for a black and white design. It's also a really fun boss fight. A tier. A tier. Also, the music is especially good, and the second phase is also good second phase. Can't really say the same about Godskin Duo. Okay, no, let's bring Godskin Noble first. Godskin Noble, he's also quite fun to fight, but he's only using thrusting attacks, and the belly rolling attack is really just too annoying to deal with, so that for all the good reasons the Godskin Apostle fight is good, there are just these kinks that make Godskin Noble definitely a tier worse than Godskin Apostle, and he's still better to fight than both at once, since they really didn't balance that fight well. They really didn't balance the Godskin Duo fight well. Not at all. Honestly speaking, I don't have any issue to fight any boss in Elden Ring, even if it's a gang boss fight, solo without summoning any NPC or my Mimic tier. But for this fight in particular, I always summon some other help to at least deal with one of them, since both of them are too aggressive to fight at once. It's not horrible, since each of their own is A or B tier, but I then find them together with not really that of a difference in aggression balance. It's just not really that fun, and you definitely need help for this particular fight. What else do we have? Grafted Scion. Yeah, F tier. F tier, it's just boring. What about Grave Ward? Okay, Grave Ward Duelist is also becoming a regular enemy type later on. And Gladiators also don't really have any interesting lore or challenging movesets. The variation with what is... It doesn't really help the case. Same Kindred of What? Honestly, when you get used to them, especially with their brilliant missile attack, you can manage them, but they are not fun to fight at all. Leon, I misbegun. Oh. Still to this day, after 10 playthroughs or so, or more, I still have a fucking issue with fighting Leon and Misbegun because they're really so aggressive and they give you little to none room to breathe when you fight them. Especially the one in the consecrated snowfields who's dropping Radagon's greatsword. It's really just annoying. It's definitely on par with... Yeah, let's just rank Runebear right now. It's also annoying with Runebear. They're too aggressive and then give little to no room to breathe or get a hit in. Oh, 46. Oh, I'm really on the fence for this one. The Ancient Dragons fights are definitely the better Dragons fights in the entire game, which would... Okay, Ancient Dragon fights, I would put them in B tier by default since they're really fun to fight. 46 on the other hand has one or two more unique movesets to him, which make this fight even more interesting. And the incorporation of Deathblight into his design is also pretty fucking cool, with the black, gold and red lightning making up his design. However, the way to the boss is just so bad. You essentially have to do the entirety of Fia's questline, which also involves that you have to go to Rani. No, you first have to go to Rocher, find the Black Knife blueprint, then go to Rani, get the inverted carrier statue from her, then have to fight Prospector Miriam in the tower next to Rani's Divine Tower. Then you have the other half of the Centipede mark, and the way to the boss is really just too bad for this one. But then again, D tier doesn't feel right just for the way to the boss itself. But I also don't feel like B tier since just such a pain to get to him. C tier. Kinda hurt a bit, but the way to the boss is just, no, it's way too long. Way too long. Honestly speaking, I have no clue when I ever fought the Lion Guardian as a boss, but then again, he's just on the same par with Runebear. Aggressive, has some more openings, but then again, yeah, it's just another enemy type, nothing too fancy. Also same with Mad Pumpkinhead, also nothing special. But Loretta, oh, she's special. Ranking Knight of the Halic Tree Loretta fight. She's definitely the best mounted enemy fight we have in the entire game. Now, retracting that statement, there's one other boss that's 10 times better than her. But yeah, her moveset is pretty solid. The incorporation of magic is also quite good. Aesthetic-wise, she has a very cool armor. And the arena we fight is also really beautiful. Drops are not really that great, but other than that, I'm really having a lot of fun fighting Loretta, so A tier. Definitely A tier. Ooh, Mimic tier. Not gonna lie, when I first encountered this boss, I was, okay, what the fuck, what's happening right now? I'm fighting myself, wait, what? It's still really fun after playing Elden Ring for the 50th times, and also the way you can cheese or mess around with this boss fight by removing, adding, or doing some other equipment is also really unique. And honestly speaking, for this concept alone, S tier. S tier for the concept alone. Boss fight is... you can't really call it a boss fight, you're just fighting yourself, which arguably becomes the most dangerous thing at the end of the game. But then again, it's just another NPC fight, so if you're just ranking fight, B tier probably, but for the concept, it's definitely really fucking unique, so S tier. Not unique and just another throwaway fight for any dungeon is Miranda. Yeah. Use fire and you can cheese yours so bad. Okay, we're ranking Moke, the Omen, and Lord of Blood separately, so basically just the very first phase of Moke, also without his boss music as Lord of Blood. It's good, but honestly speaking, Lord of Blood is another class for himself, so C tier for standalone Moke, and Lord of Blood Moke. Ooh. The boss music and the boss arena, you definitely feel like you've entered hell itself. So for these 2 points, definitely at least B tier. The use of Bloodlust in this particular fight is also that horrendous, since you can really easily dodge the blood flame he throws later in his second boss phase. Do I go S tier for this? I'm feeling S tier, but again, when he uses Nihil and you don't have the particular tier equipped in your Wondrous Physic Flask, it's also hard to survive this, so in that he's essentially one-shotting you with his Nihil without the mitigating item. Moveset-wise, he's also so cool. Okay, fun to fight, lore-wise interesting. Difficulty is also actually quite good balanced. He's really doing a lot of damage, but he's definitely dodgeable. And I think A tier seems about right for this one. Okay, next up is Magma Worm. I think that the Magma Worms in general are more interesting than the, well, let's call them default dragons we fight throughout the game, like Agil, for example. The fact that they are humans who engaged in dragon communion and as a result turned themselves into dragon is quite an interesting lore detail. And in terms of fighting, it's also it's definitely one of the more unique dragon fights in the game. But then again, once you figure their movesets out, they are really easy to fight. I feel like B, but then again, do I enjoy this fight more than Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella when we're comparing fights between dragons now? Yep, definitely do. They are definitely more fun to fight than them. And in terms of normal dragons, yeah, B tier. Next up, Malenia, Blade of Mikala. I honestly have lost count of about how many times I've heard this line, and yeah, definitely S tier fight. Malenia is essentially the wet dream of every dex build player in any From Software game. The best way to experience Malenia's boss fight is if you are a pure dex build, because you're basically engaging in a dance with Malenia when you fight her as a dex build. I've attempted Malenia quite a few times with a pure strength and strength/faith build, but the best enjoyment out of Malenia I always get when I fight her as a dex build, since I can trade plays back to back with her, and it's honestly a beautiful first phase. If you've ever watched the film Kill Bill Volume 1, I would compare fighting Malenia with a dex build towards the end of this film, where the two women fight in the small Japanese garden during the snowfall. It's like poetry when you fight Malenia as a dex build. It's really a perfect fight with a dex build. Even if you're considering Waterfall Dance and Lifesteal Mechanic. Lifesteal Mechanic, I'm not really minding that too much since it adds another unique layer of difficulty, essentially spawning you towards a 0-hit fight against Malenia, which honestly speaking is really cool. Waterfall Dance on the other hand, I've learned how to dodge it. I really love it that we can actually use this skill later on when we defeated Malenia, but in a boss fight in itself, it's essentially the sole rhyme I have with Malenia as a boss, since Waterfall Dance is essentially the chaos element in a boss fight, which I'm always on my heel for this particular move, since I know when I'm too close to Malenia, I will essentially instantly die, especially later in her phase 2 when she can inflict a Scarlet Rot on me. But other than Waterfall Dance, which is my only gripe with Malenia, it's really a perfect dance and honestly speaking, favorite boss in Elden Ring of all time. Well, until the DLC drops and we're getting some more bosses. Okay, Malakath is next one. I'm not too hard on Malakath as a boss in general, like many others. However, lore is pretty neat about Malakath. He's essentially a good boy, and his design is also really fucking gorgeous. And his second phase is definitely by far 10 times better than his first phase. Do I feel like A? It's definitely not an S tier fight due to one particular move that I really cannot stand even after having fought him for countless times. The single move where he smashes his sword into the ground and an AoE sword slash attack happens, which I can never dodge it no matter where I'm standing, since the fight is still on the chaotic side when we're considering his movements. Openings on the other hand are great, but then in this particular moveset I still cannot dodge that for the life of me. But I also don't feel like B is really appropriate for Malakath, since it's definitely an A tier boss for me. Definitely A tier. I really enjoy it, but it also depends on the build I'm using. Okay, Margaret Fell Omen. He's definitely an interesting pick for a beginner's boss as one of the better ones. But honestly, I'm not too hot on Margaret itself. I'm way more hotter on Morgott, since that's where really Morgott as a boss character truly shines. He's essentially fighting us with all of his abilities and powers, and in terms of being a balanced boss, he's definitely at the top. I am really enjoying each and every fight I have with him, independent of the build I'm currently using. Also, the boss music of this fight is chef's kiss perfect. Lore-wise, he's also very cool, and it's really like poetry that we fight him quite literally 3 times throughout halfway through the game, and it's especially the movesets he has, it's really not gonna lie, if you really want to get good at Elden Ring's basic combat mechanics, Morgott is definitely the perfect boss to train for this, or essentially hone your skills to perfection. I really love Morgott as a boss fight. Definitely Morgott deserves to be an S tier boss. Okay, what else do we've got? Knights Cavalry. Lowers are just recruits of Morgott, which isn't really that interesting, but also a nice little touch on how this particular boss who's hunting us during nighttime is connected to Morgott again, and represents essentially another roadblock to us becoming Elden Lord. I definitely prefer them more than the other nice bosses, especially Bell-Bearing Hunters, since they are way more interesting to fight, especially since they're also using... It's essentially also cool that you can fight them on horseback each, but again the variety isn't really there much. They're also very easy to fight, and depending on which one you fight, you can essentially exploit your surroundings and make them drop to the deaths. B tier seems about right for Knight Cavalry. How do we feel about Nox Duo? In terms of boss fights, they're definitely well balanced, and both of them are not overly aggressive at the same time. But then again, they're just 2 other NPCs, which isn't really that interesting. I'm giving them D tier due to them definitely being well balanced for gang fight. For Omen Killer. It's just another regular enemy type later on, and honestly speaking, they're not really that interesting or fun to fight. However, what's interesting and fun is always patches. Not gonna lie, first time when I've encountered patches in Milkwater Cave, I was honestly surprised that From Software would drop him on us as a boss in this particular scenario. Definitely S tier, boss fight is absolute garbage. But then again, it's patches, and if you've played quite literally every From Software game, you will definitely encounter patches in each and every one of those, excluding Sekiro, and it's quite... You know, Patches is the kind of dick that you absolutely hate, and you know he's going past you. But then again, he's one of the lovable sorts, since you know how he's acting, and it's a comforting feeling that you know he's always there and you normally know what he's going to do to you, and one of the best merchants in every From Software game, especially Demon's Souls. The Onyx Lord. Okay, just for the fact that he's using gravity in his boss fight, is already C tier for me. In terms of lore, we don't really get much about them, or whether, can we call him his species? Alabaster Lords, Onyx Lord? I think they're one of the... Can we consider them a race or something other? He's definitely fun to fight since he's also one of the bosses who uses gravity magic. And he's also well balanced and an acceptable challenge for... No, he's just fun to fight. Not much of a challenge, but definitely fun to fight. B tier. Perfumer Trisha. I honestly cannot remember having fought ever a boss with that name. Wait, is it just another normal enemy type fight with a bunch of dogs in it, or some misbegotten or something like that? If that's the case, then F tier, since it was just a boring and horrible fight. Which some could argue also the Putrid Tree Spirit is also in the same category as this, but if you sit down and learn the couple of few movesets they have, they're not really that difficult to fight. The difficulty for this boss is definitely two aspects. First of all, the camera angle, since that beast can move so fast that you have really a hard time to keep a track with your camera. And the other difficulty aspect is the AoE attack he has when he's charging himself up and essentially blows his surroundings up. Those are actually the only two difficulties I see with this boss, which then again is also kind of a cool design. I'm feeling D tier for this, and not really down to F tier absolute garbage. Yeah. Okay, next up, Radagon. How do you feel about Radagon? Lore-wise, he's definitely a cool character and will definitely cover him in some lore video down the line. He also has, I think he has the most versatile movesets in all of Elden Ring. I think he even has more movesets than Morgott himself, especially some really cool and gorgeous one. He's also, I think, the only enemy who is fighting us with a hammer, which is also really a cool weapon. I really wanna put him into S tier, but then again, some of his moves are just, yeah, no. Definitely his teleporting move and it building up staggering damage on us is definitely not cool and really just plain annoying. And also some of the projectiles he's shooting at us. Definitely solid, very solid A tier, but then again, he's also fun to dodge. Okay, now I will have to rank him together with the Elden Beast in mind. Which of these two phases do I enjoy more? Elden Beast is definitely the aesthetic advantage. In terms of movesets, Radagon definitely has the upper hand. The build-up of the... the music. The music for Radagon is essentially the menu music, but 10 times better. But it's also quite neat. And how balanced is Radagon to fight? You will definitely have to nail down his movesets quite a bit, but once you've nailed down, you can essentially fight him with any build. It definitely allows for dex, strength, or any other build in between. A few openings to strike at. Radagon is tough, not gonna lie. Nope, S tier. Samus Elden Ring. Not Elden Ring. Samus Elden Beast, definitely S tier. Definitely really one of the best fights in the game. Wolf of Radagon. It's just, yeah. It's basically Sif from Dark Souls 1 to some extent, but it's just plain right annoying to fight. The magic and the sword he's using is actually quite cool, which would again put him into D tier for me, but then again, his aggressive levels and the fast pace at which he moves, which most of the time allows you only to land one hit, especially if you're a strength build, it's just enough to put it down to F tier for me. Okay, what? Oh. How do I feel about Wildcard? Not gonna lie, I think he's definitely the weakest demigod boss for me personally. I don't really mind his boss fight all that much since it really has an interesting gimmick to it. But then again, it really forces you to just use the Serpent Hunter Spear, which is definitely a cool weapon to fight Wildcard with, and definitely a few notches better than the fight with Yom and the Stormcaller. But again, lore-wise, boss music-wise, it's definitely weak, but then again, the aesthetic and uniqueness of his boss design is also quite cool. Oh, and let's not forget about the voice actor with his lines, Together! Doesn't make the A cut. Nope. B. Okay, scaly misbegotten. F. Gideon Ofnir. Here are my issues with Gideon. He's essentially just spamming magic spells and incantations non-stop, and he's really a pain to fight. But then again, he's a very versatile boss, and judging by the demigod bosses you've killed so far, he can use their special moves and unique incantations and spells, which is really cool, and a really cool and unique idea. But I don't know, man, I don't know. I don't feel like he deserves B tier. Definitely not B tier. I mean, lore-wise, he's definitely one of the more interesting Tarnished, but fighting him, he's essentially a gatekeeper to a wheel, one of the best S tier fights, Godfrey, so C tier seems right for him. Okay. Okay, let's go with the meme. Am I following a group mentality and put Soldier of Godric as S tier?
No, definitely not.
However, I've played Star Wars Jedi Survivor recently, and Wick the door mechanic was definitely a nice nudge to Soldier of Godric, so just for the... okay, no, let's not rank him as a boss, let's rank him as a meme. He's definitely A tier meme material. Definitely A tier meme material. Spirit Caller Snake. Okay, you can't really call it a fight, you're essentially just fighting its summon, so F tier. Wait, now, let's first rank Ancestor Spirit. Not gonna lie, this boss is definitely top-notch when we're considering aesthetics and boss arena design. It's definitely, I don't want to call it the most unique one, since this title definitely deserves Elden Beast's boss arena and design, but then again, it's really A-tier design. The arena is definitely A-tier design. Fighting him is also actually quite interesting and unique, especially how he spirit jumps similar to Torrent and spews some kind of ghost flame at us. I find it definitely unique, but then again, the Wiggle Ancestor Spirit is definitely better than him in terms of fighting, but and especially the music for this boss fight, it really reminds me of really Shaman Tribe Pictures material. I'm giving a C tier since it's basically a Wiggle Ancestor Spirit who's definitely B tier for me. It has essentially all of the good points of Ancestor Spirit. It's also way more fun to fight, and it's definitely a longer fight since he can heal himself midway through. But then again, he as well as the Ancestor Spirit suffer from the same problem. It's kind of annoying to get to the boss arena since you have to light torches scattered throughout an open plain area, which I don't really mind traversing and lighting them, but then again, it's really annoying. So definitely B and C tier for these two. Oh no. How should we rank Grenala? Yeah, definitely the weakest demigod we fight throughout the entire game. In terms of fight alone, both phases... Okay, no. First phase is so, yeah, okay, interesting gimmick, once you figured it out. Moving on, second phase. It's definitely a beautiful arena. She also quite literally casts every spell we can later obtain in the game, and we get a preview of what we can get in terms of sorceries. The summons are also not really that much of an issue. They add another well-needed challenge to her as a boss. But then again, I've fought her so many times, and it's really so easy to fight her. C tier. It's definitely C tier, for the lack of a challenge, honestly. Loretta Wall Knight. Wait, where have I ranked Loretta Haligtree again? A tier, they're definitely B tier. It's essentially the same Wall Knight is essentially the same with Knight of the Haligtree. But then again, Loretta in the Haligtree has a couple more movesets which are... No, not a couple more movesets. Some of her movesets add magic, fire with projectiles, which adds a tad more difficulty, but not too much to consider a really unfair fight. But we don't really get it with Royal Knight Loretta, but... Yeah, honestly, B tier. What? Yeah, just F. We all know why. Das Scourge Wadan. Okay, let's consider Wadan. Chat moves him already up to B tier. The build up to his boss fights with his soldiers, singing the Song of Honor for him, which is honestly perfect. The build up with the Wadan festival is magnificent, and the fight against Wadan, with us being able to summon our own little private army and engaging him in combat with all of them, is also, while a spectacle in and of itself. Adding to it is the second phase, where it's essentially a meteorite crashing down from the sky and trying to blow us out of the map. And the gravity, the gravity magic he uses in his boss fight is is triple S tier, honestly. He's definitely S tier and definitely one of the best boss in all of Elden Ring. And also, I think one of the only main boss we can also use Torrent and engage with him in house combat. Dude, he's definitely top 5 bosses of Elden Ring, and he would definitely make a top 10 in all of FromSoft bosses. Definitely top 10. Definitely for me. Okay, with such an epic boss, the next one is, I don't want to call him pathetic, since he's not like any other dwarves, but there's definitely thought about making him attractive so that he isn't really just like any other old plain troll we fight throughout the world. But then again, just because he's made out of stone, he isn't really that much different from all of the other trolls. He isn't really a pain to fight like some of the other bigger ones, and just for a lack of difficulty and plain D tier. Tibia Marina. Not gonna lie, they're a joke to fight. They're definitely a joke to fight, and they're not really that interesting. F tier. Tree Sentinel. Tree Sentinel. Wait. Where's Draco? Oh no. Okay, we're lacking a couple of bosses. Never mind. We can fix it later in post. Okay, first Tree Sentinel, then Draconic Tree Sentinel. Tree Sentinel is honestly speaking a decent horseback fighter. I don't like Tree Sentinels more than Knights Cavalry, since I don't know, they lacked a certain something to make this fight a tad better. Considering Draconic Tree Sentinels, in terms of design, is quite visually striking and also interesting that the horses can breathe fire. So for that B tier. However, there's this one particular move I despise. Draconic Tree Sentinel builds up a lightning attack, holds up his shield right up into the sky, and then pff, instant lightning hits that can almost always instantly kill you, and it's near fucking impossible to dodge them. Which is my biggest gripe with Draconic Tree Sentinels. I can kinda manage them, but this move definitely kills me almost instantly each and every fucking time. So, definitely not B tier for that move, since it's just bullshit, but also C tier, like Tree Sentinel. Valiant, if we consider them, okay, are we considering the gang fight here or just fighting them one-on-one? No, it's the gang fight. The poison mist does it for me, F tier. It's just, why? Why add also poison to this horrible 2-boss fight? Why? Just why? Wormface, I think I've only fought him once or twice. It's just boring. Okay, Abductor Merchants. I think I've only fought them ever once. And, can I rank them? I'm basically just fighting, it's just another boss fight with 2 of typical enemy types. And they don't really have anything special to them. The only special thing is that they are kinda involved with patches, making our lives more miserable, but that's it. Yeah, just F tier. Okay, Adan. He's okay to fight, but the drop isn't really that cool, and yeah. He's just an okay fight at best. Okay, Alabaster. I think Alabaster and Onyx Lord have almost one-to-one the same moveset, and they're almost identical in terms of fighting them. Where have I put Onyx Lord? Where? Onyx Lord. There. Yeah, also just B tier. Pretty interesting, decent fight. Okay. Ooh, Alector. Black Knife Ringleader. Honestly, also Black Knife Assassin, but with, I think, 2 or 3 additional movesets, which make the fight a tad more challenging, but really interesting and engaging. Yeah, they're essentially also a Black Knife. But then again, is Alector better than a typical Black Knife Assassin? I think I'm putting Black Knife Assassin down and Alector as S tier, since he's adding the cherry on top of the difficulty for this enemy type. Well, seems about right. Okay, Ancient Hero of Samura. I think we ever fight him only in an Evergoal once, and he's later becoming a regular enemy type in Mountaintops of the Giants. Oh no, we're also fighting him in, I think, one of the hero graves also later on. The sign is cool. He's also one of the very rare enemy types who's using Frost to fight us. And it's an okay fight, but I'm not really going out of my way to really hoping that I can fight this boss. So, D tier. D tier. I feel like we're missing some more bosses from this list. I think I'm going to add them later on in post. Is there really a difference between these two? Or are they just essentially one and the same bosses, just in two different locations? I mean, Stars of Darkness definitely has this one other moveset, which Natural Born of the Void doesn't have. But then again, I'm gonna rank them both as equal. Yeah, definitely a Bloodborne boss that somehow got into the Elden Ring universe. He's also using Gravity Magic by default, puts him for me into B tier. Lore-wise, it's one of the more obscure things in Elden Ring's lore, and also interesting how Astor essentially destroyed the Nameless City in Deep Wood Death and stole the Night Sky to put it essentially into his boss arena, since he was jealous kinda of the Nox. His boss music is also kind of haunting in a good way, but not something I would go through my way to listen to, unlike some of the other tracks from Elden Ring. Okay, what about the way to the boss? If you're following Rani's questline, you will encounter him no matter what you do, and you can also encounter him, or whether it's other version, Stars of Darkness, fairly easy by going to the consecrated snowfields. In terms of difficulty, it presents a challenge, but the good one in a sense, since he's definitely a variety of movesets. Once you've figured out his movesets, even then you cannot just one-shot him, since his gravity attacks will definitely hold your attacks no matter what you will do. Doesn't matter if you jump into the air or try to dodge it. And yeah, it's an overall definitely well-balanced fight. A tier. I think both of them deserve A tier. Okay, which bosses definitely miss from this list? I think we've all of the demigods. Oh, death builds. We're liking death builds. Yeah, I'm just gonna rank death builds two and the same. I think about death builds, the design is definitely interesting and unique. Aesthetic-wise, they're kinda okay. They're not really that mind-blowing. They also present a decent challenge, I think. I would put them into B tier, right next to Alabaster Lord. Quick intersection, there are actually two bosses missing. The ones in question are Adulla and Landsax. For completion's sake, I'll rank them right now, starting with Adulla. Adulla is lore-wise quite cool to fight, since he's the last obstacle you have to surpass in order to marry Rani and become her consort. Meaning, he tests whether you are strong enough to protect her. Next to the other dragons, he also has some additional moves, and his sweeping blade attack is definitely the coolest. Aesthetic wise, he also looks sick with his black and purple colors, so B tier for him. Landsax isn't quite as cool as Adulla, but she gives us a taste of the strongest dragon race in the game when we enter the Oaks Plateau for the first time. I'll put her into B tier, with her lore being the major contributing factor. Next to being the sister of Vortisex and the priestess for the dragon cult in Leyndell, we also learn another piece of lore from her. The ancient dragons have the power to transform themselves into a human form. I consider this to be the most interesting lore piece from her, which puts Landsax into B tier. So yeah, that's my tier list for all of the bosses in Elden Ring. I hope you enjoyed me rambling about each boss on this list, and sorry if I'm too incomprehensible for many sections. I'm not really used to speak that freely with just myself and structuring my thoughts simultaneously. I edited this video into the best possible outcome, and I hope you found it entertaining. Consider to subscribe for more and definitely better made tier list videos, and also for lore videos about Elden Ring. The next major lore video will be a character analysis about Miquella, which will hopefully be released before Shadow of the Erdtree drops. So yeah, see you in another video and have a nice day. Bye bye!